Hey, welcome back to Mrs. Wizard's Way, your favorite car girl, and I've got two of my favorite cars with me today. Let's get started. So welcome back. This is not my car. This just happens to be the car I wanted, well, the gen before it, when I was in high school. I remember seeing a MR2 in my small little town here in Kansas and like, oh, that is the most beautiful car ever. I want one. I would remember driving through the local hospital's parking lot. A doctor had a red MR2. I would just drive by. It's like, oh, that thing is so beautiful. I wish I could get one. But no, silly me. I was stuck in a 1986 F-150. That's what my parents helped me get a hold of. So, okay. But this is the car I loved. I love this little car. I've always liked weird, quirky little cars. You know, the micro cars, the little Fiats, the Austin Healey's. I loved the Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. But this was the car, when I got to be driving age, the car that I loved. I loved the style of it. I loved that it was different than everything else. But somehow in life, you don't always get what you want. And so I never actually had a chance to get one. Now, when Wizard and I were searching for that cute, fun little convertible about a year or so ago, we were searching, and one of the cars on our list was the MR2. We were also looking at the Redline Saturn Sky, and we ended up with the Z3 BMW. All are fun, quirky little cars that are great to zip around corners and a blast to drive. But when this came in, I thought, oh, we need to have a video, and why not have the car I currently have? But there's some definite differences between the two. So let's kind of work our way back just a little bit to see some of these differences. And one thing I'm noticing now is the Boxster is definitely more rounded. This one's a little bit flatter. We've got very elongated headlights here. Do not have the running egg version on this, which I'm very happy about. This one is a little more rounded, and it's made of plastic because it's already got some kind of micro scratches in it. Unfortunately, it's clear, but there's some minor cracking going on. But hood, both of them swoop back. There are Franks in both of them. They both have their spare tire in there as well. So it's kind of an interesting spot if you're putting groceries or going someplace to open the front to drop some items in, because this storage is bigger than the storage in the back. Zooming back, obviously, we've got differences in our mirrors. Tiny little guy, much more elongated. Both have convertible tops. This is a leather top, and this is more of a fabric. So that's one difference. The fabric on here is still in great shape. One other difference is, and it's hard to see from up there, this has a plastic rear window. This has a glass rear window. I'm a little envious of that because as much as we want plastic to stay clear, it just can't. It just gets that weird kind of a wavy looking through a funhouse mirror on it. But this is glass. I'm very envious. It even has heated on it. So if you need to defrost your rear window in your convertible top, you still can. As we move back, the engine for our MR2 is here, and for the Boxster, it's underneath this panel, and it's really hard and complicated to see because you've kind of got to get this in mid-roar with the convertible top to kind of have partially open, and then you can get to it. But even then, I have storage here in the back, while they have no more storage. That's it. And there's about, I don't know, a good foot more distance on the Boxster. So a little bit bigger car that I ended up with, and I'm not disappointed in getting the Boxster, but when I was a kid, this was attainable. I really couldn't even foresee myself being in a Porsche when I was 17 years old. It just wasn't in the radar. This was what I saw, and I was like, wow, that is a car I really could get a hold of. But the downfall is that these are getting really hard to find today in really nice shape. It's not that I'm disappointed that I've gotten a Boxster. Don't get me wrong. I still love this car. But, you know, getting that dream first car isn't always attainable, because as you get older, when you can afford to get the car you wanted in high school, it's been a lot of years, and a lot of times the people who end up getting cars as they get older aren't very nice to them. If the convertible top stops working, maybe they just make it the hoopty and leave the top off outside. It gets rained in. They don't do the maintenance like they should. The chance of having wrecks is getting higher. They're just putting lots of miles on the car as well. So all those elements really hurt a car. And there's some definite differences there, because this one has 70,000 miles. This little one is pushing 45, almost to 45,000 miles. So there's definite difference there. But I've got some comparison papers here of the differences between them, because, you know, as much as I want to remember all the details of every car on the planet, it ain't happening. So I looked up some info for us. One of the biggest things, the differences, was the price point when these guys were new. When this guy was new, he was about $25,000. This guy, $55,000. Twice as much to get the Boxster S than it was to get the MR2. So obviously you can see that was definitely much more unattainable for me. Of the two, many of the specs are the same. The Boxster is 95 inches on the wheelbase. This guy is 96 inches on the wheelbase. Basically the same. One of the biggest differences, though, is the engine. This little one has a cute little 1.8 liter in it. It is a 16 valve inline 4-cylinder, so it definitely gets some get up and go. It can get to, you know, 60 in 8 seconds. It's got 138 horsepower. So the Boxster here is a 3.2 liter flat 6 24 valve engine. It can go 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds, and it has 250 horsepower, so over 100 horsepower more than this little guy. Now, having lots of horsepower can be fun, but having too much horsepower, we learned when I had Hoovie's old GT 600, yeah, that's what it dynoed at. It was a GT 500. That thing was, it was fast, it was just too much power, and it wasn't as much fun. I mean, if you try and get on it, it's like, whoa, going out, and it's like, oh, I could have, you know, taken out crowds. That's not what I want when I drive a car. I want to be able to go and zip around, have fun in the city, and that's what this can do. This could totally do that as well. So let's hop into the interior, and I'll show you a few more items that are different between the two from inside the cars. Let's go inside. So here we are in our MR2, and you're going to notice some definite differences today. One of which we're going to see that there's our gauge cluster. It does have some nice screens back there, and on the Wizards video you'll see that it did say it had 79,000 miles on it, so it's definitely a little bit more than the Boxster. But you can see we have lots of controls over there on that side, and on this side you can see here's where our key goes, which is going to be different than the Boxster. We have a little hidey spot up here. I call this the Baker box, where you can put whatever you put in there, it's going to get roasted, because it's called summer usually when you have this out and it's hot. One thing I am totally jealous of is this glove box. I don't have a glove box in my Boxster, so they have a glove box. They have lots of controls over here for HVAC and a very large stereo system as well. One thing that I do like and appreciate is where the cup holder is located in this car. It is nicely put on the bottom, not above everything else, on the bottom. So if anything were to spill, it's going to go to the floorboard, which will be a mess, but it will be a mess, not damaged components. This is the biggest difference. It has a 5-speed transmission, which is definitely going to be different than what we're going to see over in that Boxster, but still a fun little car to drive with 5-speed. The center section also contains the e-brake and our window controls, which you're going to see is located very similarly in the Porsche. In the center console, they don't really have a lid for this, but they have a cup holder and a little spot to, I guess, hold change, whatnot. They also have a little door back here, and if we open this, you can see that they have a nice little kind of a backspace to put whatnot in there. Not easily accessible when you're driving, but when you're parked, you can definitely store a few items back there and keep it from blowing out of the car. Now, with the Boxster, we get a trunk. You don't have a trunk here because that's called the engine in this car. We do get a nice little shelf. So if the top is up, you could put some items in there and not get blown away. If the top is down, not happening. But it's still a nice little storage area for the car when it has very little storage space. The seats are leather. They do not have as much bolster as you're going to see in the Boxster, but they are still nice. They are still comfortable. They are a leather, which was an option in the car. As we look at everything else, it's looking good. Let's go ahead and check with what is different about this interior from the Boxster. Okay, so here we are in the Boxster, and she is ready for Cars and Cockpits, which is the Wichita version of Cars and Coffee for tomorrow. So we're filming Friday, it's going to be Saturday, and you're going to see this on Sunday. So quick turnaround on this. But you can see there, it does say that she is almost at 45,000 miles. The gauge cluster is a little more streamlined, seemed to be a little busier up there in the MR2, but you can see where there could be lots of illuminated lights. They are not at the moment, thank God. As we move over here, you'll see here is where we have our ignition and our controls for our windows. So that's a bit different, but there's a lot more options over here on the Toyota than there is on the Porsche. We have options over here. Now, remember, there's not that this is missing something, but do remember on the doors forward, a Boxster is the same as a 911. It's the doors back is where a Boxster becomes different from that 911. And so there could have been options here that the 911 would have had that the Boxster doesn't. See, here's our unlocked doors, our defrost, and our control for the convertible top. Have a nice Porsche radio, but you can see here, this is the one thing I do not like. These do not get used. They both work, but I absolutely do not use them. They are terrible. They are so shallow. They seem a little floppy, and if anything were to spill, has a potential to hit the radio, go down here. This would have held CDs, but I have this traded out for an exact fit, custom designed for the Boxster to make it a nice little cubby hole, because who listens to CDs anymore, especially since I have a Bluetooth adapter over here. But again, that beverage could fall and hit any of this and hit our HVAC controls, which, as we know, did not do well on the Mercedes that the Wizard recently had in his shop. Totally fried that board, took out all those window motor controls. So definitely not using these cup holders, but I found a solution for that, but I'll show you that in just a second. This is what makes this thing so much fun to drive. And a big difference between the MR2. The MR2 was a 5-speed manual, and that was the only option in that car. They only could get a manual. You could get an automatic version of the Boxster with a Tiptronic transmission, but let's be honest, the manual is so much more fun to drive. As we move back, you'll see that the e-brake says Porsche, and we have controls for our windows here, which is in a similar location as it was in the MR2. We have a tiny little ashtray in there as well. Got two controls here that would have controlled the back windows if this was the 911, but it's not. Now, back here is this is what I have for a glove box, but this is what I have as a solution for my cup holder. I was able to buy this custom made for this Boxster. And now we have a nice cup holder that nothing is going to, this is much deeper, should spill out of. But it does great to hold my lip gloss. These seats, you can tell, have a little more bolster on the side. They are leather, but they look similar in nature, but they do have a little more bolster on that side. They also have on the door card a nice little spot where you can put, I guess, technically maps. Who uses maps anymore? But nonetheless, that's what it is. We do have a tiny little spot here that I can keep whatnots, keeps my hat, my sun visor, and a little dust wand. And if moving the seat forward, we can see that I do have a very tiny little spot right there as well. I do not have that big storage compartment like the MR2 did because, well, the engine is literally right there. It does have a shelf there, and you're going to look through it through the air dam, which MR2 did not have, but that makes it inaccessible. You can't get to that shelf with the top up, so I'd have to take out the air dam to get to that, and it's just as easy to leave it in as it is because, well, we're almost to top-down season here in Kansas. Steering wheel, leather steering wheel, feels great. Love driving this thing. This little guy looks great here in the center as well, but let's go ahead and look at some of the differences in our engines. Now, as much as I know about cars, I don't work on cars. That's just not what I do. I love cars. I know a lot about how they work, but actually the wrenching and all that, I don't know. So I'm going to bring in the all-star today. Wizard, why don't you come and help me with this section of it?
Hello, everyone. There's definitely some differences between these two cars with the engines, the way that they're mounted, the way that they're oriented, and also how one's a rear engine car and one is a mid-engine car. On the MR2, our engine is oriented left to right. It's also located directly over the center of the rear wheels. So if you draw a line in the middle of the rear wheels, the engine lines up with that line. So it's a rear engine car. The weight of the engine sits specifically on the rear wheels, but on the Boxster,
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit, just not too much more forward, but you can see it's a little bit different. The engine's about right here.
Yeah, so the center line of the wheel is about right here, but the engine is up here. It's almost in the middle of the car, and that really helped for weight distribution. And the engine's not oriented left to right. It's just like a Chevy 350 and a Chevy truck, front to back. One downside is on the MR2, you can just open the rear hatch and there's the engine. Yeah. And in literally 30 seconds you can be to the engine. This one requires partially opening the convertible top, then removing some carpet padding, then removing another panel. Then you can get to the engine, and it's not very easy to work on because you have all this stuff opened up and in your way. Kind of cumbersome. They're both engines in the back of the car, but at the same time they're totally different.
Yeah, and this car can have some very serious problems that this car cannot.
It's very reliable. The 1.8s used in Corollas and all kinds of Toyotas all over the world, pretty much bulletproof.
Yeah, and this one, at least we've all heard of the scariness of the IMS bearing.
It's actually not as big of a problem as people think it is. It just happens when someone has that issue, they scream about it, and it makes it bigger than it really is. It's actually just a small percentage of the engines had that issue. This one's still going strong here over 20 years later.
Yeah, and when we do the next oil change on the Boxster, we'll definitely be looking for any metal shavings, anything that could be a sign that the bearing is starting to get wore. But I don't drive it that hard. I'm in town driving it, so I'm doing a lot of fun zipping around. So
yeah.
It's definitely not being abused. And again, it's only got 45,000 miles on it. So thinking of those 45,000 miles, let's go put another couple on there for them. Let's take them for a drive.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and take this out. You guys have never seen this car out on the road before, so let's go. Sure nobody's coming. Here we go. That just sound amazing. Can't go too fast in this part of town. But this is so easy to drive. The transmission is so smooth. Not quite as smooth as the Wizard's Nissan 300ZX. That transmission is so easy to drive, and that's one of the reasons that he actually can handle driving a stick shift. But again, we're not driving terribly far. We drive across town, so it's not like miles and miles of driving or driving in traffic. Traffic with a stick shift is never fun. Stop, go, stop, go. That's so annoying. But this is so nice. It drives straight. The steering wheel's in a good straight position. Nothing's shaking. This is one of the few cars that the Wizard has bought that did not need extensive work. It didn't need all four wheel bearings like one of his Volkswagen Bugs needed. It didn't need lots of valve cover gaskets and didn't have leaks, and we think we've had them all. So let's go ahead and get up here a little bit, and then I'll turn around and let you see me take off one more time. So just a second. Okay, here we go, ladies and gents. Even on a curve, this thing drives so smooth. And you know what? Today we have like 50-mile-an-hour winds, side winds coming from the south, not blowing this thing around at all. Because again, it's so aerodynamic, it's so close to the ground. It makes this a much easier drive. I would not say that would be the case today in my Defender, because that thing's a cube, a big block, and the wind would definitely be hitting that today and be like, oh, every time. And again, we just went by some trees, the wind hit us. Did you feel it knock us over any? Not a bit. So let's head back into the shop and wrap this up. Okay, ladies and gents. Park over here by the Wizard's Nissan. And oh, this is exactly where our local guy for Cars and Cockpit said that we would get to park tomorrow. I'm so excited. I think he's got a better spot for us, actually. But Wasn't that a blast? I love this car. Do I miss not getting an MR2? Maybe a little, but I still love this car just as much. So I think I need to let the wizard get back in there because he is holding the camera. Hope you have enjoyed him holding our camera on our drive today, but he's got to get back to work. He's got to check in and see what all they're doing in there. Anyway, nice seeing you. Catch you next time. Bye.